All right. Attempt number 3. Keep having some difficulties. That's why I started this way before January 6th on Inauguration Day, so that I would actually know what the fuck I'm doing by the time I'm doing this every day, tracking the presidency. I was on a roll too, and my video keeps getting cut off. So now that I've broken my train of thought twice, I'm going to try again. As you can see, checking in late today again. Got to start getting up in the mornings. I don't know who else struggles with that. It's easy when, if I had to be up for work or something, I'll get up for that. But not having anything scheduled or anyone holding me accountable, I'm not a morning person. One of the channels, Motiversity, I've talked about before. I listen to a lot of their videos when I'm working out and stuff. The one that I was listening to today talked about self-discipline, and that really, for me, painted the picture of what I'm working on. I've talked about in the past my habits, core habits that I'm focused on right now are meditation, reading, and exercise. But what are those? Those are forms of self-discipline, which, is kind of corny, but one of the things it says on there is self-discipline is the best form of self-love. Exercise, taking care of yourself, meditating and things like that, that is self-love. So self-discipline is the key to success. And if you don't have self-discipline, you will never be successful. Unless, don't get me wrong, there are people out there who they're born into it. I won't name any names, Donald Trump. There are people who, they just get lucky. They win the lottery. But for the rest of us, if you don't work and if you don't have the habits that successful people have, working, studying, learning, growing, then you will never reach the level that you want. But self-discipline isn't just forming good habits, it's acknowledging the bad habits, which for me right now, one of the worst ones is not getting up in the morning. And I've talked about in the past the concept of replacing a bad habit with a good habit. And for me, what that means right now is, instead of sleeping until, well, not even sleeping, because I wake up at 8 o'clock every day, no matter what. I just don't get out of bed. I feel like a lot of people can probably relate to that. But getting up and doing something instead of watching TV or scrolling on Facebook until 9:30, 10 o'clock. For me right now, the goal is to be up doing something in the morning, and it's just hard sometimes. This morning was partially my fault. Well, it was my fault. There's no partially. But I did stay up late last night. I was on Twitch and I got my first raid. That was very cool. Appreciated that. But since my viewer count basically went to the highest it had been all night, I went ahead and stayed on for an extra few hours, just to, hang out with some new people, which was fun. It was a great time. But I didn't get up this morning, and that's on me. I should have, I should have told myself, knowing I'm going to bed late, maybe set an extra alarm or something, or move my alarm clock further away. But I didn't, and I ended up sleeping in a little bit today. Slept past 9:30, which, as I've told y'all before, 9:30 is my goal to have these things done so that I can start watching the options market and trading options for the rest of the day, or at least for a couple hours till I hit, $250 for the day, and then I'll stop. But I had a good day. Everything I had, or not everything, but overall my account did move up. The only two stocks I've been looking at right now is Nvidia and Rivian, which we'll talk more about that at the end of the video today. Um, but yeah, so discipline. If you want to be successful, you've got to have self-discipline. Um, I know it's hard to kind of imagine what that means sometimes, but honestly, is I don't know what word to use. It's kind of scatterbrained, not in a bad way, but if the Motiversity channel, if you just listen to that stuff, you'll start getting in your own head, and you'll know what you need to work on, what's holding you back. If you listen to that kind of stuff and it makes you uncomfortable, then it's probably not meant. I don't mean it in a bad way, but the life that you think you want is probably not meant for you. But if you listen to those videos and you feel motivated, it makes you want to do more, and you start looking at yourself and saying, all right, this is what I need to work on. This is where my weakness is. Then success will be there for you. One of my favorite corny lines from it is, success is on the other side of pain. Just things like that. What's hard for you to do in life? Is it hard for you to get up and work out like me? Well, chances are if you do that, then there is a benefit on the other side of it that you probably want. So that being said, we will now segue. I usually open up with a little story about myself. I wanted to talk about a friend in high school, someone haven't heard from in a long time, kind of went our separate ways. And again, I will never mention names in any of these videos. But anyway, this was when I was in high school, about 15, 16. I was a sophomore at the time on the football team, and there was this one kid. He's real quiet. I don't want to say, it's not that he was soft, but it was just he seemed so broken and sad, and it's, no one made fun of him or anything. It's not like he didn't have friends, but you could just tell something was on the kid's mind. And so I kind of started being friends with him and talking to him, and it turns out, this was 15 something years ago. I don't know what all the kid was going through. I just remember him talking about his father being abusive, and I don't ever know what came of it all. But I would talk to that kid every day about God and Jesus, and how, it might feel like he's alone and all this stuff, but he's not. And after a couple weeks, it led to me eventually leading this guy in the Shepherd's Prayer after football practice one day. To this day, he is still a devout Christian. It probably got him through a really dark time. If his father was abusive, and if he was going through all that stuff, then I can understand how that comfort might have helped. So there was a time in my life that I did believe that, it helps people, and that in a situation like that, that was the best thing you could do for somebody. I don't believe that anymore. In a situation like that, it would really depend on the person, how I would handle that. As two high schoolers, there's not much you can do. But as an adult, I give a friend a place to stay or something like that. I don't know. Definitely a tough situation. So if without that, I don't know what I would do in that situation, or how I would advise them or comfort them. But I would try to do so without using that personally. So that being said, that was Just again, kind of painting that picture of where I was at in the past and where I'm at today. Going from pretty hard right to very, very much in the middle. But today, I'm going to talk about a hot topic. We're going to talk about trans people, transgender, and why this upsets people so much is beyond me. There are no instances of, there's no evidence that trans people are dangerous or that they're harmful or that they're going to hurt anybody. So, there was a time in my life, obviously, that I was definitely against something like this. But that was also before I understood anything about it. A lot of your people on the right call it fake science and pseudoscience. So we're going to address a lot of these arguments and things. Where they get the notion that this is any sort of pseudoscience is beyond me, considering it has a lot less to do with biology and more to do with psychology. Everyone always wants to do, penis and vagina. But being trans, someone who is trans, they're not thinking about genitals. Like, genitals are the last thing on their mind. There's the argument that, we're normalizing mental illness or whatever, and I don't even understand what that expression, what does it mean to normalize mental illness? There's all kinds of mental illnesses out there. What do you mean by normalize? Do we ostracize these people? Is that what you're wanting us to do? Because I'm not going to do that. I prefer taking the time to understand people. So one of the big things with the whole trans thing, I don't think anyone who is on the side defending or looking out for these people, none of us think that they don't need help. None of us think that there is no condition. There's a reason in the DSM-5 it is referred to as gender dysphoria, and to get any sort of trans care, you have to be diagnosed with gender dysphoria, which I believe is something like 6 months it takes. So this is not something people just wake up one day and flip a switch and suddenly they just want to go from male to female or female to male. This is a decision that probably was something in the back of this person's mind for years. They finally went and got checked out, talked to a doctor for at least 6 months before they were ever even put on any sort of actual therapy treatment, as far as hormone blockers or anything like that. I also hear the common argument about these people going in the bathroom. That's just weird. I don't understand why that's even such a common argument. That doesn't, it's not, up until trans people started being talked about, this was never an issue. I don't remember growing up and having to worry about if someone was gonna, that wasn't a thing. It's not a thing. It's never been a thing. But it's the dog whistle that these people use because, let's just be real, they're assholes. It's plain, and they don't want to understand. They don't care to understand. If it's anything outside of their bubble, they are not going to give it the ear. They're not going to give it the time of day. They're not going to listen. If it does not conform to their norm, ironically, since they're the ones who scream about, pushing agendas. But if it doesn't conform into their bubble, then it's wrong, it's bad. No matter what you do, no matter what you show them, they're never going to understand or care or want to listen. And that's the biggest issue. I think at the end of the day, as someone who was once really against the idea of trans people, it was an abomination, it was bad, whatever. I've thought the same things y'all did. But when I started taking the time to listen and understand, my viewpoint completely changed. I don't know how to explain it to someone who doesn't want to listen, but at the end of the day, there's, I mean, nothing. I just don't understand why y'all want to hate somebody just for being like trans. Like, where does the benefit to society come into play by treating these people as less than you? You know, again, the bathroom is a huge issue. Everyone always talks about that one, and I really, from the bottom of my heart, think you have to be a really messed up person in the head to care about where people pee. Something happened in your life, don't know what it was, something happened at some point that hurt you. Maybe you were assaulted, and maybe it happened in a bad, I don't know. But I cannot, for the life of me, fathom why anyone would want to check people's genitals going into the bathroom. A lot of people, I do have an 8-year-old daughter. A lot of people ask, well, would you let your 8-year-old daughter go in the bathroom alone with someone like that? Well, my 8-year-old daughter is not going to be in the bathroom alone. I'm probably going to let her go either with her grandma when she's with us, or I'll find a family restroom somewhere. Like, an 8-year-old kid really shouldn't be left unattended anyway. So how that is even an argument makes no sense to me. You know, you also got things like the sports, which I can almost kind of understand, but at the end of the day, anyone who's against trans people in sports has never taken the time to see what they go through as far as the therapy and everything like that, the hormone therapy, the effects that it has on their body after going through a year or 2 years of this process. They're almost unrecognizable at that point. So all in all, I don't know. I really don't get why anyone even gets upset about trans people. Like, the only reason I was upset back in the day is because I didn't understand. I didn't know. I never asked questions. I never wanted to, and I know you don't. I know that's why y'all feel the way you do, and that's why a lot of you watching this video getting upset about being called an asshole for how you treat trans people is you've never taken the time to ask questions. You don't care, and that is why you get upset. Because someone's making you care about something that you don't want to care about. So in order for you to have an opinion, in order for you to have these conversations, you're having to learn about something you would rather pretend doesn't exist. And that's why you're the whole, well, if I don't, I just don't want to see it. I just don't do it in front of me. That is, you don't want it to exist. You, in your mind, the world would be better without those people. So unfortunately, there is no way for you to ever hold a logical opinion when you have such a strong bias. So I urge you to actually take the time to learn about this stuff. Nobody thinks that anyone's changing biology or anything like that. And what I really want to stress is the big thing is that gender dysphoria is considered a mental illness. Nobody is arguing that at all. The professionals in the field of psychology have determined that the best treatment for gender dysphoria is gender affirming care. I am not a doctor. I'm not a psychologist. Therefore, I cannot tell those people, the vast majority of the people in that field, I do not have the place to tell them they are wrong, and neither do you. This is a fact. So, and unfortunately, yes, there are times when professionals get things wrong. They told us to drink beer for kidney stones and cigarettes for anxiety. Those things are a little more obvious. I think anyone can reasonably assume smoking something is not going to be good for you. I don't really need a doctor to tell me that. But as far as having, trying to tell a doctor what they should do to treat a trans person. I mean, and at the end of the day, if you think gender affirming care is wrong, how do you think we should help these people? Because you can't just convert them. If you think you're just going to put them in therapy and a trans female is just going to suddenly want to be a cis male again, then you have vastly overestimated your own level of knowledge on this subject. They've tried gay conversion therapy, and we all saw how that went. It went horribly and was outlawed. Permanently scarred people for the rest of their lives. So if someone's trans, there's nothing you can do to change that. You're not going to be able to stop that. The only thing you can do to protect your own mental health and sanity is to just stop trying to fight something that you don't care about. At no point will these people ever affect your life. At no point will it ever be a harm or an inconvenience for you for a trans female to go piss in the female's restroom or a trans male to piss in the men's restroom. It is never going to inconvenience you. No matter how important you think you are, no matter how special you think you are, there is never a point in time in any of our lives where we will be inconvenienced by a trans person. I would love to have these conversations in person, just because it's kind of hard to respond to all the ridiculous, asinine arguments out there all at once. Because I know as soon as I stop recording, I'll forget some, or I'll remember some. At the end of the day, man, trans people are just trying to live. They just want to live their life and be left alone. That is it. They're not asking for special treatment. They're not asking to, they don't want, it's just like gay people wanting to get married. It's not, I don't understand the whole conservative movement. Anytime they're, when women wanted to vote, conservatives said no. When, I don't get it. I don't understand. And then they turn around and champion themselves as we believe in freedom and, we'll protect your rights and all this stuff. But then they go around and want to tell a trans person that where they have to pee, which, someone else said it, but it's super akin to not letting a black person use a certain water fountain just because of your stigmas toward them. Not the same, but the stigma that you're placing on somebody just because of who they are without even knowing them, that is not fair. I really don't. I just want the world to get along, man. And as long as y'all hold this hate in your heart, it's not gonna go away. The best thing I urge you to do. It was uncomfortable for me at first. It was hard. I exposed myself by going to drag shows. I had a friend drag me to one, and I was like, all right, this is cool, so I went to another. And just being around stuff like that, slowly, I was like, these people, they're just living their lives. That's it. It's all we all want to do, man. We all just want to live our lives. So why y'all have to act like trans people, it's like not even an issue. I don't understand why we even have to talk about it. There should be no point where this is a political argument, because human rights are not political. It's that simple. If a trans female goes into the women's restroom and takes a piss, no one has committed a crime. And if you paint anything outside of that, an attempt to try to paint them as you are pushing born supremacy bullshit, where you're trying to be preemptive on criminals. You're doing the same thing that liberals do to gun owners when you assume that, guns are bad. So you can't look at one through one scope and not look at the other through the same scope. So if you don't want gun owners to be held liable for the actions of a few, then you can't. And it's not even the same analogy, because being trans does not inherently make you a predator. They're not bad because they're trans. If someone is going to do something like that, they're going to do it because they're a bad person. Not because they're trans, not because they're straight, not because they're white, not because they're black, not because they're from space, not because they're from hell. I don't care. Bad people are going to do bad things, no matter what. That is the same argument you use with guns. You can't not use that same argument with something like this. It's not fair to put double standards on things. So either you get a double standard or nobody gets a double standard. It's just the fair way to do things. Now, if anyone ever were to bring me substantial proof that said being trans makes this person dangerous, I will recant everything. I'll go wherever, I will stand on Times Square and say I was wrong. But the fact, as of right now, is trans people are real. If someone is trans female, they are trans female. The best thing for that person is going to be gender affirming care. That is a fact. This has been studied by people who are smarter than you and me, and smarter than pretty much anyone that you and I know. They are more versed on this subject. They know more about it than we do. You do not know doctors that go against this, despite what you think. You might know one fringe doctor that you found on the internet who goes against everything. But whatever, y'all keep trying to call it pseudoscience or whatever, and that really, like I said, that just makes no sense for me, especially from people who think climate change is a hoax and all that, a lot of them think the earth is flat. So I want to understand at least what you mean by pseudoscience. Considering this, when it comes to trans people, it's a matter of psychology, not biology. Where is the science? Y'all always try to minimalize it down to genitals. But again, this is all in the mind. And this is a channel that we definitely talk about the mind and body duo here. And what it's like to have those in sync or not in sync is something we'll talk about down the road. But for now, we can touch on it a little bit. But for a trans person, their mind and body are not in sync. The mind is female, the body is male. How do you fix that? What can you do to fix that? The mind is more powerful than the body. The mind will always be more powerful than the body. So do you try to overcome the mind, or do you try to overcome the body? Well, psychologists found that it would be easier to overcome the body and perform gender-affirming care. There's a lot of myths going around that this stuff is going on in schools. It's not. That teachers are trying to push it on kids. They're not. That gender-affirming care is happening in schools. It's not. Teachers can't even afford pencils. They're not pumping your kids full of hormone blockers. Get a grip on reality. I can understand wanting to have an opinion on this topic, but just for the love of God, please educate yourself on the topic you want to discuss. What is a trans person, and where does that classification come from? You don't get to just wake up and say, I'm trans. There is a diagnosis process. Well, I don't want to say you can't. You can. But to get gender affirming care, there is a process. So all in all, nobody thinks, let's be real. The people who support this, myself, others, we think everybody should go to therapy at least once. So no, none of us think that these people don't need help. But they just don't need help for the reasons you think they need help. You want them to fit in your world, and you want their problem to be able to be fixed how you want it to be fixed, because you're not willing to branch outside of your world. Well, unfortunately, the world is bigger than you. And the reality is that their problem is something that you don't even understand. So you're not going to have you can't have a solution to something you don't understand. And that's why, I really just strongly urge people, take the time, talk to some trans people. Just do it. Just have a conversation. Um, Literally nothing. You cannot lose anything having that experience, that interaction. You will only have something to gain from it. Um, so, one person in mind that I think of a lot is Mac Beggs, because of the whole sports argument. Mac Beggs was trans male, meaning he was born female and transitioned to male later in life. Mac competed in the high school, Texas high school wrestling girls league. Max dominated 2 years in a row. Max wanted to wrestle with boys, which would have given a fair opportunity to girls that wanted to be girls, as opposed to wrestling a girl that was taking stuff to become a boy, um, or transition to a boy, to reaffirm their gender identity. And again, I apologize to anyone who is trans that is watching this. If I butcher anything or say something wrong, I apologize, but I'm hopefully doing my best here. But everyone always talks about the girls who lose opportunities because they have to compete against a trans female, but one, that rarely happens. The few instances it has, like Leah Thomas wasn't even she wasn't even great. She was not a good swimmer. Um, there was no race where she set any records. She didn't have this stellar kick-ass career where she was just dominating every pool that she set foot in. In fact, she lost more than she won, numerous times, repeatedly, to cis females. So she didn't have this huge advantage, which, again, it's one thing to have an opinion. I get that. If you want to feel the way you do, feel the way you do. But at least come with all the facts. Know the whole story. Instead of just hearing what you hear on Fox News or from Ben Shapiro and then running with it and assuming that trans people are taking over the world or whatever nonsense you're buying into, stop. Because it's not happening. They literally just want to live. It is no different than gay people trying to get married. The only thing I could see is that in some sports, maybe like UFC, monitoring the process to see, is 6 months enough time? Do they need to transition for 2 years before competing? Because the anatomy does change to some degree. It's not changing their biology, but it is changing their anatomy. How's that for pseudoscience? So the thing is, like I said, at the end of the day, trans people are here. They're not going anywhere. The world is becoming more and more accepting of others. We're putting behind old, archaic ways of thinking. We want love. We want to spread peace, acceptance. Tired of hate and vitriol and bullshit and all your nasty ass personalities. So, I just, that is the whole LGBT thing. That's one that I definitely feel very strongly about. Just because I was one of you, I was one of the people who hated them so much. I'd see it on TV and I'd get angry. I wanted to stop the agenda and all this stuff, and then I realized that was all just a boogeyman. These people aren't villains. They're not evil. There's no inherent bad. So, comment below. Feel free to share your opinion, how you feel about it. But at the end of the day, make sure if you're going to share an opinion on it, that you do come with a informed opinion on it, and you're not just responding emotionally. I feel like this is a topic that, especially for the right, is extremely triggering for them, and having any sort of rational conversation, debate is thrown out the window because they just don't want to hear it. They don't. So if you want to have this conversation, I'd love to, but please make sure you actually do inform yourself. What is gender dysphoria? What is transgender? What do these terms mean? Where do they all come together? And for the love of God, stop trying to paint them all as pedophiles. That's just fucking weird. So that being said, we will move on to news. Like I was saying, I've been trading Nvidia and Rivian lately. Rivian is finally getting a lot of up and down price action. Have not really got onto the trend for that one yet. I did make a couple good trades off Nvidia. Finally sort of getting into the ebb and flow on that one. I caught it at a peak, sold off, took a put, went down, made a little off that, took another call, went up, and at the same time I've got a leap that I've been holding underneath the whole time, just letting that one go up because I see long-term growth for Nvidia, especially after Blackwell comes out. That being said, mentioning Blackwell, if you're looking for a really good sector right now, I highly recommend AI. Anybody that makes chips. So you got companies like AMD, Nvidia. I think there's one called SMCI. Those are going to be companies I would start buying right now as well. I'm not going to say much, but I think a lot of your EV companies are going to end up suffering in the long run under the Trump and Elon pairing. Tesla will probably do fine. Tesla's going to be fine. They, little buddy thing going on. But I do believe that the other ones are not going to do as hot. Lucid and Polestar might do well, but we'll see. Right now, my eyes are pretty much just on Rivian because it's very volatile and very affordable options. If you're looking for a cheap options contract, something you can start for 15, 20, 30 bucks trading some options, I highly recommend Rivian. I use Robinhood. If you have any questions, feel free to post in the comments. I will try to get to all of them that I can, and eventually once I have enough questions, I will make a video and put together a video talking about options trading. Again, I'm no guru, but I can at least help you understand what it is, and you can start from there. Honestly, for me, when it came to options, I read books, I watched YouTube videos, one of the classes I took in college had a whole chapter about derivative markets. Roxas, if you knock my phone over. Go. Even in my investments class, we had a whole section about derivatives, and it still made no sense when I looked at the options screen. It wasn't until I finally started trading, I said, screw it, and I started buying some, and I kind of understood, okay, this is how this works. But we can get into some of that later. I hope some of y'all have started at least doing your $10 a week. If you haven't, before we, it will be a little bit before I move on to talking about more. But get on that. Make sure you're putting your $10 a week into a savings account for now. If you want to go ahead and put it into a Robinhood or Stash account or something, go ahead and do that. Just put it somewhere you're not going to touch it. And let's just start getting that money put away. 10, 20, 40, 50, whatever you can afford to do. But make sure it's consistent. If it's $50 once a month, if it's $100 every 2 weeks, if it's $10 every week, whatever, just make sure you're on a consistent schedule. That is the key that we're focusing on with that. We want to make our financial habits consistent habits. We're not trying to just get a bonus at work and put it in savings and that's our savings now. We want consistent habits in everything we do, whether it be our exercise, reading, meditation, money, whatever we're doing, eating. We want consistent habits. So just like when you want to get in shape, you go to the gym every day, and if you don't get in shape. If you want to save money and you want to have that financial security, you have to have the habits. You have to go to the gym every day. That doesn't mean you have to put money in savings every day, but you do need to have a consistent regimen. You need consistency. If you want, if some of you want to go ahead and start looking ahead into like money markets and mutual funds, if you want to just set it up to automatically do $10 a week in a mutual fund, go ahead and do that. I'm not going to pick a mutual fund for you. Best case, I might pick a few out and let y'all pick from that, but I will not tell anybody where to put their money. That is mainly just to cover my own ass. I love you guys, but I don't trust all of you to not screw me over if anything ever went bad. I have lost money. I will probably lose some money again at some point. It is the nature of the beast. So that's why I will not tell you where to put your money. I will only ever say where I've put my money, which right now my money is in Nvidia calls. And then I have puts and calls on Rivian. So that being said, we are at 40 minutes, so I've got a pretty decent video today. I really do hope we can have some open civil discussion about the trans topic. I feel like this is obviously something that really upsets a lot of people, but I think that if those people take the time to actually understand the other side of the argument and hear people out and listen, then a lot of that anger and frustration will go away, the fear will go away, and we can all move towards living together. I love you all. Please be blessed by whatever God you believe in, and have a wonderful night.